Hello and welcome back to Globesweeper Hex Puzzler. Today, my brain gets a little bit of an intermission with two fairly easy levels, I would say. I imagine I'll have time for both. We can take a look at 2Chain and Starlink. I was kind of wrong last time. I said these two I think were also not that bad, but they're a bit on the more difficult end. But these two really are not a problem. It's kind of weird that they're even here in this part of the game, but I guess that just depends on the angle you come from and stuff. So, let's take a look at 2Chain to begin with. So, to start here, we look at this max 3 tile here. So, the max 3 tile can have a maximum of 3 tiles in a chain, and it has to have one 3-chain somewhere in these 5 tiles. Because of that, we have to mark this middle tile here. If we were to remove this tile, then we're left with 2 tiles here and 2 tiles here, and we cannot make a 3-chain. We can only make a 3-chain this way, or this way. So we already know that this tile has to be marked, and we can just click that. That gives us a 3 tile. And because we know we need to make a 3 tile, a 3-chain here, here, or here, this 3 tile will be completed, this 3 cluster, which means it's only gonna use these 5 tiles and cannot use any of the other tiles surrounding it. When it's done, we have to disconnect all other tiles or it would become a 4 cluster. So these 2 tiles we can already say can't be used by this 3 cluster. And now, this tile, this maximum 3, now also has to have a 3-chain, and there's only one spot left for a 3-chain. So this has to be a 3-chain. That completes this 2 here, and we get the 3 here. Now, we have to place the 3 right here for this max 3, completing this cluster, and this tile as well is done. And this max 1 can't have a chain of 2, so this tile is disconnected. Here, once again, we get a max 3 tile with 5 tiles, so this center tile has to be marked. We can't disconnect that one or remove that one. Because we marked this tile, this 4 cluster, which has 3 tiles, now can't use this tile or it would get 4 and then 5 tiles. So this one is now gone. At that point, we got this 2 cluster down here, which is already done. So this tile can be removed, which gives us that for the 2, and this is done. This max 1 can't have a 2-chain, so this is disconnected. This 4 cluster has 1 tile, has to go up here for 2, which completes this max 2-chain or tile. We have a 2-chain, we have to disconnect that. And then it has to continue up here for 3. And then this cluster now, 4 cluster, has to go up here for the 4th tile, which completes these 2 4s. So those are done, or removed. And the 2 there, and the 4. And here, this max 3 also has to have a 3-chain, and this is the only spot for a 3-chain, so that those have to be marked. This max 1 tile can't have 2 in a row, and this 2 needs 1 more tile. This 6 cluster now has 6 tiles, so all the tiles connected to it can be disconnected. We get the 2 there. That completes this 4-chain. We could have done that earlier too, but that doesn't matter. So this tile can't be marked, or it would become a 5-chain. We get the 2 there. Once again, a max 3 that only has 1 spot for a 3-chain, so those are marked. That completes this 3 here. This 3 needs these 2. And let's go... is it left that runs into a block? Yeah, I think it's left. So let's continue left for now. The 2 here is done, and the 1, this is just some basic tiles. Don't need to explain this really. A max 2 tile in 3 tiles means we have to mark the center tile, because that's the only way to make a 2-chain using these 2 tiles or these 2 tiles. So that always has to be marked. And now we have our 2-chain, so this tile can't be marked or we would get just a 3-chain. Same kind of thing here, but with 1 more tile. A max 3 tile, we have to make a 3-chain in these 4 tiles, which means that these 2 tiles in the center have to be marked. If either of these are disconnected, we can no longer make a 3-chain. We can only make a 3-chain this way or this way. So we have to mark these 2, and that gives us the 3-chain so we can disconnect this final tile. The 1 here, and this one. This max 1 can't have 2 in a row, so that's disconnected. And that's as far as we can do, take this left path. We have a 7 here with 5 tiles, can't say anything more about that. Now we move on here to the right instead. This 3 is done, we get the 4 here, and now we have 5 tiles out of 6 in this 6 cluster. So the 6 cluster will have one of these 2 tiles. And because of that, we can remove this tile that touches both of these tiles, because if this one is marked, then we have to disconnect these 2. If this one is marked, then we have to disconnect all of these. So this tile can't be marked in any way, or this 6 cluster could not complete itself without becoming a 7 cluster. So that is removed, and gives us, once again, a max 3 tile with 5 tiles. And we already know the center tile has to be marked in that situation, so we mark that. And now we can't use this tile, or we give too many tiles to the 6 cluster, so that's removed. Now because of that, the 6 cluster has to finish here, and we only have 1 spot left for the 3 chain for this max 3, so these 2 tiles have to be marked. That gave us a 3 cluster, which is already done, so disconnect it from all other tiles. And we get some basic tiles here, this 3 and the 1. This max 1 can't have 2 in a row, so this tile is disconnected. The 5 here. This 2 is done, and the 5 there, and that now completes this 8 cluster, so we can disconnect it from the other tiles. The 3 there, and the 4. This 6 has 1 tile and has to go down here for 2, which completes the 3 here, so this tile is done, or removed. This 1 is done. This 4 marks these tiles. This 1 needs that tile, and the 2 here is done now. Here we have another max 2 tile. We have 1 tile here, we have 1 tile here, and we have to have a 2 chain, and the only spot for the 2 chain is in these 3 tiles. And as we saw before, if you have 3 tiles and you have to make a 2 chain, you have to use the center tile. And that gave us the final tile for this 6 cluster, so all the tiles connected to it can be disconnected. We get the 4 there, we have a max 3 here, which only has 1 spot for a 3 chain, so all of these have to be marked. That completed this 5 cluster, so we can disconnect all of those tiles. And 1 tile here for the 3, that completes this 2. This 3 now has to go on here for 2 tiles, completing this 2, and the 1 here, and then has to continue on here for the 3rd tile, and have these tiles disconnected. We get these 2 tiles for the 3, which now gave us all 7 tiles in this 7 cluster from earlier, so we can disconnect all of the connecting tiles there, and finally mark this final tile. So there you go. Really a very oddly easy level, as I've said, but that's fine. Now, let's jump into Starlink, which isn't much worse as far as I remember. Alright, so this one, we can start in 3 different spots, but right here in the start, we have a 3 groups clue. So around this 3 groups tile, we have to make 3 individual groups of tiles. So if we add the next tile over here, we don't add another group, that's still just 1 group. This is still 1 group. But adding this tile in would be another group, and then adding this tile in would be a 3rd group, and that's the only configuration. When you have a 3 group, you have to have either these 3 tiles or these 3 tiles. There is no other way to make 3 separate groups around a 3 groups clue. So these have to be marked, and then the in-between tiles have to be disconnected. Same here, we can't add a group here, we can't add a group here. To add the 3rd group, we have to use this tile. Probably gonna not really explain these tiles anymore. There's gonna be a lot of these, just know that that's a thing. If you have 1 tile on a 3 groups tile, you can always just skip 1 tile, mark the next, skip 1 tile, mark the next. That's always gonna be a thing. So these are gone here. A max 1 tile here, can't have 2 in a row, so that's disconnected. This max 2 tile has to have a 2 chain, so we have to mark this tile to give it a 2 chain. This max 1 tile can't have 2 in a row, so that's gone. Max 2 again needs a 2 chain. This minimum 2 we could have done earlier as well. It has to have, this tile has to be part of a 2 chain or more, so that tile has to be marked for 2 in a chain. And now we can't use this tile because then we get a 5 chain and we don't have 1 2 chain left for this tile. So this one has to be disconnected. And I guess I shouldn't say as we've seen before, because you might be jumping here for just this level and nothing else, but when you have a max 3 tile with 5 tiles surrounding it, the center tile always has to be marked, because that is a mandatory tile to make a 3 chain. We can only make a 3 chain surrounding this way, or this way. If we disconnect this tile, we are only left with 2 tiles here and 2 tiles here. So therefore we have to make the 3 chain here, and the 3 chain is now complete, so this is disconnected. This max 1 tile, can't have 2 in a row, so this one is disconnected. Now, we can jump here, but let's just flip over to the end because there's very similar little tiny sections. Section first, and then we can jump into the main bulk of the puzzle. So here, we have 2 groups in 3 tiles, so we have to add in minimum 2 tiles, and the only way to make 2 groups in 3 tiles is to use the edge tiles and not the center. So we get that marked, and this disconnected. Here we have a max 1 tile, so that can't connect up to any more tiles in this, or surrounding it. It can only have 1 tile, so these are gone. Same here, max 1. 2 groups, we have 1 group, we have to add a second one. Max 1 again, can't have a 2 chain. And here we have a minimum 4, so we have 1 tile here, has to be part of a 4 chain, so 2, 3, and 4. And we have to have a 4 chain and nothing more surrounding this, so this tile is disconnected. That gave us a max 1, so this tile is gone because we have this tile. Max 1 again, I don't think I need to explain max 1 tiles, so I'll just do them from now on. 2 groups here, if we add this tile it's not a new group, so we have to add this tile to make 2 separate groups and disconnect this tile. And max 1. So there we go, that's the 2 little mini sections done. Now, right here, we have 5 tiles and we have to add 3 groups. So, because we don't have this tile, we have to mark this tile and then a gap, this tile, then a gap, this tile. So that's always going to be a thing, like I've said, on 3 group clues. Now we can go right or left. Let's start by going right. We have a minimum 2 tile here, so these 2 tiles have to be part of chains of 2 or more. So 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And like we saw before, we can't add in this tile now, or we just get 1 chain of 5 instead of at least 1 group of 2 surrounding this minimum 2 tile. So that has to be disconnected. Max 1, and max 2, we have to have a 2 chain somewhere, and that's the only place for it. Max 1 tile, can't have a 2 chain. 3 group, just make 3 groups, shouldn't need to explain that. Max 1, shouldn't need to explain that. 3 groups, yep, max 1, and max 2, we have to have a 2 chain. Max 1, so this tile can't be connected to that tile. And here we have a max 4. So in these 5 tiles we have to have 1 chain of 4, but we can't have more than that. And because we already have these tiles, we know that this tile has to be marked, but either way, even if you have no tiles here, when you have 5 tiles and you need to mark a chain of 4, you always have to mark these 3 center tiles, because if you remove any of these tiles, you can no longer make a 4 chain in just 5 tiles. So this tile has to be marked, regardless of whether these other ones were marked. But now that gives us the 4 chain, so this tile can be removed. Minimum 2, we have one tile, we have to mark this one as well, to make it a 2 chain. Now here we have a max 2, and we have 3 tiles here to make a 2 chain for this max 2. We have 1 tile here, that doesn't matter, that's fine, but we do have to have 1 chain of 2. And since we have 3 tiles, the only way to make a 2 chain is using these 2 tiles or these 2 tiles. So the center tile has to be marked in any case. If we remove this tile, we can't make a 2 chain anymore. So we have to mark that, and that gives us the 2 chain, so this tile can be deleted. A minimum 3, we have 1 tile, we have to make 2 and then 3, and we have to preserve at least 1 3 surrounding this tile, so this tile can't be marked to make it a 4 chain. 2 groups, we have 1 group, skip 1 tile and add a second group. Max 1, can't connect up to this one. Minimum 3 again, same thing there, disconnect the last tile. Max 1, max 1, max 1, 1 group. So we already have 1 group here, and these 2 tiles are completely separated. If we were to mark either of these 2 tiles, we would add a second group. We can't connect it up to be just 1 group, so these 2 tiles have to be disconnected. 2 groups in 3 tiles, we have to mark the edges and disconnect the middle. Max 1 tile, that has to be disconnected. Minimum 2, we have 1 and 2, and we have to preserve 1 2 chain, so this tile is removed. 2 group in 4 tiles now, but we already have 1 group here and 1 group here. We can't add in this final tile, because then we just give it 1 group of 4. We have to have 2 groups, so we have to disconnect this tile. Minimum 1, we have a 2 chain, that's fine, and we have a 1 tile here. And we need to have at least 1 tile that is on its own for the minimum 1, so we can't add in this tile to make it 2 groups of 2. And then minimum 3 only has 3 tiles, so we have to mark all of them. And that's all we can do here. This is a block, a wall we can't pass, so let's go all the way back to the left side instead. So, max 1, delete the tiles neighboring the marked tiles. One group here, we already have one tile marked, so that's the one group. These tiles are not connected to this tile, so we can't mark any of these tiles. Minimum 2, we only have 2 tiles, so in this situation the minimum thing doesn't even matter, it's just a 2 tile. Max 1, and same here, a minimum 1, we only have 1 tile, so we can just mark it, it doesn't even matter. Max 1, can't connect up these tiles. Max 3, we have to have a 3 chain surrounding it somewhere, and this is the only spot for it. 2 group, we have to add in a separate group. This is not a separate group, this is a separate group. And then disconnect in between them, so it's not one group. Max 1 tile. Max 2, we have to have a 2 chain surrounding it, and that's the only spot for it. 3 groups. Max 1. We have a 2 chain here, we have to disconnect this tile. Max 1 here, so disconnect that tile. Max 2, we have a 2 chain, so disconnect that tile. Minimum 2, we have 1 tile here, and 2 tiles there, and then we have to have a 2 chain surrounding this tile. Again, minimum 2, so 1 and 2, but then now, we can't add in this tile here, because then we would get 3 tiles in a chain, and that's fine for the minimum 2, but then we don't have enough space to mark a second 2 chain. So because of that, we have to disconnect this tile, and we have to disconnect this tile as well, because now it can't make a 2 chain for this minimum 2. Minimum 2 with 2 tiles only. Maximum 1, so none of these tiles can be connected. And 1 group here, we have 1 group here. We can't add in either of these 2 tiles because they are both in a separate group entirely, can't connect up to this tile. 2 groups in 3 tiles, don't use the center. A max 1 here, can't connect up here. Max 1, max 2 needs a 2 chain. Max 1, 3 groups. Max 1, and this minimum 2 needs to have a 2 chain, that's the only spot, and this single tile can't be marked because it can't be part of a 2 chain. Here we have a max 2 with 1 tile, and then we need to make a 2 chain somewhere in here. As we've seen, the center tile has to be marked, and we now get the 2 chain, so this is disconnected. Minimum 3, 1, 2, and 3, disconnect the final tile. 2 groups, so 1 and 2. Max 1, it's just the same thing we've seen a million times now. 1 group, so these 2 are the 1 group we have. We can't connect up either of these tiles because it would be in a new group. 2 groups in 3 tiles. Max 1, and max 2, we have to have a 2 chain surrounding it. Max 1 tile, can't connect up to here. Max 2, we have a 2 chain, so this is gone. 1 group, so this can't be marked to make a second group. Minimum 2, so these 2 tiles are marked. Max 1, so we can't connect up this tile to anything else. 3 groups. Minimum 2, so 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and this tile in the center can't be marked, or we would just get a 5 chain instead of having 1 chain of 2. Max 1 tile, so this can't be connected to this tile. Max 1. Max 2, we need a 2 chain here. Max 1, disconnect that tile. 1 group, this tile is already 1 group, we can't add in any of these tiles, they would be a second group. 2 group in 3 tiles, same thing again. Minimum 2 in these 2 tiles. Max 1, so that's disconnected. Max 1, minimum 2, so here we go. Minimum 2, this is actually a little different. In this case, we cannot mark the center tile, because regardless of whether these are marked or not, if we were to mark this tile, we would make a 3 chain, which is fine for the max 2, but then we are left with not enough tiles to make a separate 2 chain. If we have a 3 chain here, we would have to disconnect this tile, and then we're left with only 1 tile, so we can't make another 2 chain. So this tile has to be removed. And then we get a max 2 with 1 tile here, and we have to have a 2 chain, so this has to be the 2 chain for it. Because of that now, these 2 tiles both have to be marked. We have a minimum 2, so we have 1 tile here, we have to have a 2 chain. So there you go. 2 not overly difficult levels, but I'm gonna leave it off there, because both of these are probably gonna take quite a bit longer. I don't remember if I've even practiced 6 stripes, but we'll get to it. I think I can't even beat this one in practice yet. I know I have in the past, I just need to figure out what's going on there, but this one is not overly hard, it's just, it's pretty lengthy and very easy to get lost in, sort of like icosahedron, but I would say it's a bit easier, so we might do this one next. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, hope that was helpful, and we'll see you in some of the harder levels, perhaps. coming up soon. Bye-bye!